It's the holiday season, and that means it's a perfect time to start looking for a new smartphone. How's it going, everyone? I'm Taylor from PhoneDog.com, and whether you're in the market for a phone for yourself, your friends, or your family members, it's difficult to choose just one phone. The holidays are a perfect time to start looking, though, because there are different deals and specials that can be had that can't be found through the rest of the year. However, choosing one phone is very difficult. We've been over this a million times. There are a lot of similar phones and some that are very different, but choosing the perfect smartphone for you can be a daunting task. So I've composed a list of my top 5 Verizon smartphones for the holiday season. Let's get started. The number 5 Verizon smartphone this holiday season is the HTC Windows Phone 8X. It's a little on the smaller side. It has a 4.3-inch 720p SLCD2 display, and that means the density is pretty high. It has a 342 pixels per inch rating, which is higher than most your other smartphones out there. And it has a 1.5 GHz dual-core Snapdragon S4 processor, 1 GB of RAM, 16 GB of built-in storage with no option to expand, and an 1800 mAh battery. And that's kind of the fatal flaw of this phone. The battery isn't great, or at least huge in terms of capacity, and the storage is limited, much like the Droid DNA. So it has some fatal flaws, but it's still a great device. Next up, in 4th, is the Apple iPhone 5. With features like a 4-inch Retina display, the A6 chip, and LTE connectivity, it's a definite step up over last year's iPhone 4S. However, Apple hasn't really changed the software in many years. No major upgrades, and things are really mostly the same. The phone was built from the ground up, but it looks the same. It's a little thinner and a little longer, but other than that, it looks very similar. It's a great all-around device because it has storage capacities that start at 16 gigabytes and go up to 64 gigabytes. However, it's not exactly cheap. It starts at about $200 with a contract and ends at $400. It's a great phone if you can fork over the money. With a display that is 1 full inch larger than the iPhone 5's, my number 3 Verizon smartphone this holiday season is the HTC Droid DNA. The 1080p display is gorgeous. It's 5 inches, so it's a little on the large side, but it is absolutely gorgeous with over 440 pixels per inch. The 1.5 GHz quad-core Snapdragon S4 Pro processor is really fast. There was no lag when I used the phone, and it is extremely fast. It has 2 GB of RAM, 16 GB of built-in storage, and a 2020 mAh battery. And again, like the HTC Windows Phone 8X, that's the fatal flaw here. The battery is okay, it's meager, and the storage is okay if you don't store a lot of things on your phone. I personally store a lot of things on my phone. I download movies from Google Play, and I install a lot of games, and that takes up a lot of storage space. So if you need expandable options, the HTC Droid DNA is probably not the best choice for you, but it is a powerhouse of a phone, and it has an enormous, gorgeous display. The number 2 Verizon smartphone this holiday season is the Motorola Droid Razr Max HD, which is a mouthful to pronounce. With a 4.7-inch Super AMOLED display, it is around the median in terms of smartphone sizes. There are smaller ones 4 and below, 5 inches and above, and your high-end phones range between 4.3 and 4.8 inches now, and the Droid Razr Max HD is right in the middle of that. It also comes with a 1.5 GHz dual-core Snapdragon S4 processor, 1 GB of RAM, 16 or 32 GB of built-in storage, and you can expand that using microSD up to 64 GB. And what's really the killer feature of this phone is the 3300 mAh battery. It is a monster, and it should last most users about a day and a half. And if you don't use your phone nearly as much and you use Wi-Fi instead of LTE, you might be able to get 2 days and more. But the other great feature of this phone is the interface. Motorola's custom interface has changed greatly over the past few years, and the more they update, the more they're more like the stock interface. You see a lot of design cues from stock Android, and I figure that's a product of Motorola being part of Google now. But those are 2 of the best features of a phone, the stock-like Android interface and the large battery, and that's what ranks it number 2 in my list. The number 1 Verizon smartphone on my holiday list is, you guessed it, the Samsung Galaxy Note 2. With a 5.5-inch HD Super AMOLED Plus display, 1.6 GHz quad-core Exynos processor, 2 GB of RAM, 16 GB of built-in storage, and a 3100 mAh battery, which is a monster by the way, it's hard to compete with the Samsung Galaxy Note 2. It's in a league of its own, but that is mostly thanks to TouchWiz Nature UX and the features that Samsung has included, such as the software optimization for the S Pen and features like multi-window and S Pen, or the S Note, pop-up browser, and different features like that that make multitasking on this phone more tablet-like than smartphone. But technically, it is a smartphone, and it is my number one choice this holiday season on Verizon. Now, to recap, that is the HTC Windows Phone 8X in number 5. Number 4 is the Apple iPhone 5. 3 is the Droid DNA by HTC. And number 2 is the Motorola Droid Razr Max HD. And number 1, of course, is the Samsung Galaxy Note 2. Thanks for watching, and keep it tuned to Phone Dog for more.